Good morning, my brothers and sisters. Welcome to episode 122 in the book of Acts. At least that's our official passage, because our main passage is going to be a correlative passage in 1 Corinthians chapter 16. Let me tell you where we are in the book of Acts. This is Acts 19:21. Now, after these events, Paul resolved in the Spirit. This is how he's making decisions. He decides, it seems good to me, to pass through Macedonia and Achaia and go to Jerusalem, saying, after I've been there, I must also see Rome. We talked about this yesterday, a massive trip, thousands of miles, basically the distance from Los Angeles to New York, down to Key West. This is a huge planning thing that Paul is doing here, ending in Rome, which is also going to end in his death. Okay, verse 22, and having sent into Macedonia two of his helpers, Timothy and Erastus, he himself, Paul, stayed in Asia, that is Ephesus, because that's the Roman province of Asia, for a while. So the context is that Paul is in Ephesus, which is the capital of a Roman province called Asia. He's basically working for a good bit of time, establishing the 7 churches of the Revelation, because they're all relatively nearby. He's visiting them, and then he's reasoning in the synagogue, and we find him arguing and debating and reasoning in the house of Tyrannus daily as he is staying in Ephesus. Now, he is also, quote unquote, occupied with the word, which I think means teaching and explaining the Old Testament, but also starting to generate, with the Holy Spirit's inspiration, the New Testament, because he's starting to write books. Galatians has been written, 1 Thessalonians, 2 Thessalonians has been written, and now we find out that at this moment in time where we find Paul in Ephesus, he is writing the book of Corinthians, 1 Corinthians, as turns out. How do we know that? Well, he refers to exactly the same stuff as he does in this third person account written by Luke. So Acts is written by Luke. It's mostly about Paul and the Holy Spirit. So when he refers to Paul in the third person. He says, and then Paul does this, and then this. Well, 1 Corinthians is written by Paul in a first person kind of a way. And here's what it says in 1 Corinthians. So this is the same moment in time in Ephesus that Luke is writing about in the book of Acts, and now Paul is going to write about it in the book of 1 Corinthians. So listen in here. He's writing to the Corinthians, which he's planning to go to. And when I arrive, I will send those whom you accredit by letter to carry your gift to Jerusalem. So they're collecting money for Jerusalem. And if it seems advisable that I should also go, they will accompany me. For I will visit you after passing through Macedonia, for I intend to pass through Macedonia, and perhaps I will stay with you or even spend the winter, so that you may help me on my journey wherever I go. For I do not want to see you now just in passing. I hope to spend some time with you if the Lord permits. But I will stay in Ephesus until Pentecost. That's where he is as he writes it. For a wide door of effective work has opened to me, and there are many adversaries. When Timothy comes, because in Acts he's sending Timothy and Erastus, see that you put him at ease among you, for he is doing the work of the Lord. And verse 11, this is funny. So let no one despise him, I think because he was younger. Help him on his way in peace, that he may return to me, for I am expecting him with the brothers. All right, so let's just pay attention for a second to this correlative passage in the book of 1 Corinthians, where he talks about the same direction of travel, which doesn't quite make sense, where he goes kitty corner from where he is at Ephesus up to Macedonia first, and then down to Athens in a kind of a counterclockwise and further distance. It would make a lot more sense if he just went from Corinth went to Corinth directly from where he is now, but he says he's going to go up to Macedonia first. So that's a little bit crazy, but both Acts and 1 Corinthians talk about the same direction and talk about the same crazy direction. So there must be a reason for it. I don't know what it is. Second thing is how long, the duration. So the direction is crazy. The duration, he wants to stay a winter. Now, he's already stayed with the Corinthians 18 months, so he knows them very, very well. And he says that he wants to stay with them a good bit of time, maybe stay over for a winter. But in the meantime, he's going to stay in Ephesus. And then one of the things I thought was important in this was the emphasis on how he makes decisions. We've been talking about that for a couple of days, and how he expresses his desires. And in other words, how does a Christian make plans? And he says soft words like, I intend to, perhaps I will, I want to, I hope to, I will stay in Ephesus. So he's making planning just the way that you would, softly. And he says that there's a wide door of effective work open, but there are many adversaries, kind of a push and a pull. And don't despise Timothy in Erastus. So here are some take-home points, I think, for me, is that I think he's giving us liberty of deciding and intending. And how do Christians decide? Well, the same way as Paul does. You plan stuff, you intend to do stuff, you want to do stuff, you plan to do stuff, it seems good to you, and the Holy Spirit resolve in the Spirit. And so there's a softness to this in planning, and I think this gives us liberty to make some decisions, and you don't have to say, the Lord told me to eat a bowl of Wheaties this morning. So it's liberty in planning and liberty in deciding. That's the main point. And I just think it's also correlatively interesting and affirming that the same moment in Acts is talked about in 1 Corinthians, Acts being in the third person because Luke's writing it, 1 Corinthians in the first person because Paul is writing it, and they're exactly the same moment in time and affirming the same direction and duration and decision and doors, and reminding them not to despise Timothy. So have freedom today. Have freedom in your planning. Have freedom in your deciding as you do it, as you resolve in the Spirit, just like Paul does. Thanks for listening. I'll see you tomorrow with the Lord's will.